Good evening. I'm Pete Peterson, Executive Director of the Davenport Institute at Pepperdine's School of Public Policy, and I bring you greetings from the planet Malibu. I come in peace. I mean you no harm. We're very happy to co-sponsor tonight's evening conversation with the Trinity Forum, as it appears tonight that we've disproved one axiom, but it's my hope that one of tonight's benefits is that we will disprove a second. The first, variously attributed to Paul Begala and James Carville, is the rather crude remark that Washington, D.C. is Hollywood for ugly people. And judging by tonight's turnout, I think that we have put that one to rest, unless you've all been bussed in from North Carolina or something. But as someone who grew up in the Northeast and actually went to undergrad school here in the district, I know there is a second unspoken phrase that is the first near inverse. Put directly, Hollywood, or more directly, Southern California, is Washington, D.C. for stupid people. From our blessed plot overlooking the Pacific Ocean, the School of Public Policy is a unique graduate program, pushing students to know both the promise and limitations of policymaking. The only program of its kind based on a great book's curriculum. Pepperdine carries forward the intention of its founders, including the late James Q. Wilson, who knew woven into all politics and policy is a certain moral sense. That's why we're so excited to partner once again with the Trinity Forum, an organization that seeks to encourage deeper questioning of issues ranging from politics to business. So thanks to you all for coming tonight. I trust that we are all in for a thought-provoking evening, and I will now turn it over to Cherie Harder. Cherie, thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Good evening to you all, and welcome to Trinity Forum and the Pepperdine University School of Public Policy's evening conversation with columnist and author Ross Douthat, and on his new book, Bad Religion: How We Became a Nation of Heretics. I'm Cherie Harder. I'm the president of the Trinity Forum, and we're delighted that all of you came in, and we're delighted to partner with you, Pete, and with Pepperdine. For those of you who aren't familiar with the Trinity Forum, since our founding in 1991, and I'm delighted to note that one of our founders, Oz Guinness, is here and has joined us for the evening, we've sought to provide a space and resources for leaders to engage life's greatest questions in the context of faith. We do this by providing readings and publications which draw upon classic works of literature and sponsoring programs such as this one tonight to connect leading thinkers with thinking leaders in engaging life's biggest questions, and to better come to know the author of the answers. And certainly, many of the greatest questions in life surround religion, what we believe to be true about both material and spiritual reality, and around what or in whom we place our faith, find our hope, align our thinking, and order our loves. As such, our understanding and practice of faith necessarily has extraordinarily public consequences. Cultures grow around a shared set of beliefs, and when the nature of those beliefs change, so will society, a fact which has fueled many of the cultural battles around the practice of faith in the public square. But while many of the culture wars have been cast as battles between the faithful and the faithless, or between those who want to impose their religion on everybody else and those who want to strip the practice of faith from the public square entirely, a new book by Ross Douthat argues that the most corrosive cultural factor has not been either excessive religiosity or expansive secularism, but rather bad religion. The erosion and distortion of Orthodox Christianity in a manner that has engendered the rise of debased versions of the faith that, in his own words, stroke our egos, indulge our follies, and encourage our worst impulses, with disastrous political, civic, economic, and relational consequences. Moreover, he argues that such distortions, once considered polluted streams off the river of orthodoxy, have now flooded the banks, while the river itself has largely dried up and receded, leaving behind a very different religious and cultural environment. It is a provocative argument to make, and there are few who more enjoy or are more skilled at making thoughtful provocation than Ross Douthat. Ross is a columnist for the New York Times, a best-selling author, and a staggeringly prolific blogger. Before joining the Times in 2009, he was the senior editor for The Atlantic magazine and a blogger for theatlantic.com, as well as film critic for the National Review. When he departed The Atlantic for the Gray Lady of the New York Times, his former editor paid tribute to him in print as a young, quote, public intellectual with a sensibility of a 60-year-old Eminence Grise, the range of a Hitchens, the conscience of a Niebuhr, and the intellectual honesty of his frequent sparring partner, Andrew Sullivan. So when he is not channeling Hitchens, Niebuhr, and Sullivan, he has authored several books, including Privilege, Harvard and the Education of the Ruling Class, and Grand New Party, How Republicans Can Win the Working Class and Save the American Dream. His latest book, Bad Religion, is being published today by the Free Press and has already generated no small amount of controversy and a great deal of discussion, which we hope to further this evening. Responding to Ross will be two of the most thoughtful analysts of religion and public life, Barbara Bradley Hagerty and Mike Gerson. Barbara Bradley Hagerty is the religion correspondent for NPR, where she reports on the intersection of faith and politics, law, science, and culture. Her coverage has earned her, among many other awards, the American Women in Radio and Television Award, the Headliners Award, and the Religion Newswriter Association Award for reporting. She previously served as NPR's Chief Justice correspondent, covering such happy topics as the impeachment proceedings against President Clinton, the presidential election dispute of 2000, terrorism, crime, espionage, wrongful convictions, and the occasional serial killer. She eventually turned from covering crime and killers to God. She's also the author of the New York Times best-selling book, Fingerprints of God, the Search for the Science of Spirituality, which was published by Penguin Books in 2009. Michael Gerson is a nationally syndicated columnist whose articles appear twice weekly in the Washington Post. You probably saw his most recent one. And the author of Heroic Conservatism and co-author, along with Pete Wehner, of City of Man, Religion and Politics in a New Era. He also serves as the senior advisor at ONE, a bipartisan organization dedicated to the fight against extreme poverty and preventable diseases, and a Hastert Fellow at the Denny Hastert Center for Economics, Government, and Public Policy at Wheaton, as well as the co-chair of the Poverty Forum and co-chair of the Catholic and Evangelical Dialogue. He previously served as a senior fellow for the Council on Foreign Relations, as well as a top advisor for President George W. Bush in policy and strategic planning, as well as his chief speechwriter, and previously served as a senior editor covering politics at U.S. News & World Report. So tonight, we'll have an opportunity to hear from Ross on how, exactly, we became a nation of heretics, followed by responses from Barb and Mike, and then an opportunity for your questions. Ross, welcome.
Well, thank you so much, Cherie. That's a quite wonderful introduction, made only slightly less wonderful by the fact that I paid my Atlantic colleague about $5,000 to write that encomium to me when I departed, but it was worth every penny. Thank you guys all so much for being here. I was telling Cherie beforehand that I was going to do two extremely risky things in the course of this discussion. The first was to speak extemporaneously without a prepared text, which will be a high-wire act that all of you can enjoy. And the second is to provide a kind of overview of the book we're discussing here tonight, which is an extremely risky thing for an author to do because it raises the possibility that, having heard the overview, some of you might not actually buy it. But I see that some of you have it already, so I am reassured.